so calculators, their graphing calculator is a lot like Desmos. I'm going to use their geometry tool, and I'm going to try to build that triangle that I described a moment ago. So going back here, I want to build a triangle that has a 45-degree angle, its opposite side is 4, and another side is 5. So I'll show you how I can use a tool like that to do that. Anyone ever back in maybe high school or elementary school use a compass and protractor to play around like with circles and lines? So this allows you to do stuff like that. So I'm going to get some more tools here, and then hit more again. And then I'm going to draw a baseline like I did. Doesn't matter where those points are at the moment. Then I want to measure off one of these a 45-degree angle, and they have a tool down here for an angle of a given size. So first you click on an away point, then you click on a point that's at the center of the angle, and it's going to default to degrees. If you get rid of the degree symbol, it'll default to radians. So leave the degree symbol in if it's degrees. I do want 45, counterclockwise, yep. And then what it's going to do is draw the angle and a point aiming that angle aims at there. Okay, so next I'm going to draw that line in. Now the side of 4 has to be over here somewhere. Before I can start putting that in, I need to put in the 5, and I'm going to choose to put it on this side here. And the way I measure it there is using like a compass, or is it circle with a given radius. So what I can do is say put the center of the circle here, and then give me a radius of, this one's supposed to be 5. And so that means I want my point right there. So then I'm going to find the intersection. So the distance from here to here is 5. Just to confirm that, I can measure it. Click, click. Okay, so there's my 5. From here to get a length 4, I'm just going to draw a circle of size 4 from here. And then the intersection will be down there. So go back to my circle with radius. So that's like using a compass. Click at the center point and then say, okay, I want to measure out 4 from there. And so then here's the point I drew. But check this out. There's another point I could have used. So I drew the circle with that, the triangle with that point right here. But it turns out from here, there's another point inside that would have worked. So it turns out there are 2 different triangles that satisfy these conditions. So I'll explain how that works. It doesn't always work that way. So my triangle, draw it, get a polygon tool. The one I just did was this one. And I can check my work because I can use this to measure angles and sides and see. So for example, we thought this bottom side was 5.41. I can just go get the measuring tool here and say how far are A and D apart. And it should say 5.4 something. I can get more decimals if I want to. We also had, let's see, this side should be 4. So I can check that too. There's my 4. And then I can also measure angles. So like if I wanted to double check that C was really 70, what did we find, 72-ish? When you measure and make angles, you have to have a center point for the angle. So I would say go from here to here to here to measure that angle. And there's 72.9, which is about what we found before. So you don't have to use this tool to do any work, but it is pretty nice because it's kind of like a digital compass protractor kind of tool where you can make angles of any size you want. You can make sides of any size you want. And then you can measure everything that is on there, which is kind of fun. But again, I just want to point out that it turns out there is another point over here. Let's see, I want the intersection tool. And with the intersection tool, you can either click where they meet or click on the 2 things you want to find intersections of. And if they meet in more than one point, it'll find all of the points for you, which is kind of cool. I just want that one. And so there is another triangle here. Let's change its color. So I have two different triangles. And so you will have at least one homework problem. I think I'll save that one for next week, where I want you to find any possible triangles. So let's figure out how to find the other triangle and when this happens and when it doesn't. So back here, from this point, I just guessed that the side 4 went out that direction, but it turns out there's another universe where it could go that way. And I could have a side 4 there, and I get a totally different triangle here. What's the relationship between these triangles? So how is this angle here related to the angle that I found over here?
That would be.
No, it wouldn't be. I'm going to have a new gamma too. It's going to be smaller. It turns out it's not gamma. Okay, so check this out. Would you agree that this length is 4, right? And so is this one right here. So I've just made an isosceles triangle. If this is an isosceles triangle, then this angle right there also has to be beta. And since this other angle and beta make a straight line together, the other angle has to be 180 minus beta. Yeah, so it turns out if there is another triangle, the other one will have its angle, we'll call that beta 2, will be 180 minus the first beta that you found, if there's another alternate triangle. Okay, so next, when might there be an alternate triangle? So the alternate triangle happens related to the side you were given and the altitude from that side and angle. If the other side has a length between the altitude and the side you were given, then there's going to be two options. But if this other side was, say, smaller than the altitude, then what you're going to have is this dangling side. It's never going to connect. No triangle, right? So you can't just make up two sides at an angle and it's going to make a triangle. Sometimes it doesn't. The pieces just don't fit. If you are given a side that's bigger than the one you were given, then you would have something that reaches way out there, and there's no possible way you can get another triangle out of it. And this happens when we have a situation that is in the form of given an angle, followed by a side, followed by another side. Situations like that can possibly have a second version of the triangle.
But wouldn't the opposite side have to be smaller?
So the opposite side has to be, if it's between the altitude and the adjacent side, then there's two possible triangles you can make. If this opposite side is bigger than the adjacent side, there's only one possible triangle it can make. And if the opposite side is shorter, you can't, than the altitude, you can't possibly make a triangle out of it. So it turns out there are three possibilities based on how big that is compared to the adjacent side and the corresponding altitude. And typically with the homework, it'll either just say find the other parts of the triangle, or it'll say if there's more than one triangle, find them both. Okay. All right. So let's stop this recording and do another example. So much for ending class early. Sorry.